welcome to the Glam Cam. I'm Rachel Barenbaum, author of A Bend in the Stars, and today I'm here with Diane Zinna, author of The All-Night Sun. This novel just dropped, and it is packed with sizzling emotion, gorgeous language, and Swedish folklore. Diane, tell me, what is your book about?
Well, it's called The All-Night Sun, and it follows a lonely writing professor named Lauren who has long been grieving the deaths of her parents alone. And she forms a fast emotional connection with an 18-year-old international student named Siri who invites her to visit her home in Sweden for the summer. And she goes, but she realizes that there's no sun that's bright enough or stays out long enough to make things better. Grief is something that you have to go through. There's no way around it.
You write about grief so vividly, and it's so powerful. Can you tell us how you did that? What are some of your secrets?
Oh, well, I definitely tapped into some periods of my life that were very real and real experiences of grief. And I just put everything in me on the page. And I trusted that there were going to be compassionate readers who would be able to see this and maybe see some instances of their own lives and Lauren's experience.
What was your secret for tapping into that grief? Did you have a ritual that you went through every day?
I wouldn't say a ritual, except that when I got to a point where I knew I had to expand and it was feeling flat on the page, I'm very much a laptop person, but I would always turn to the writing. I would always go to a blank page and write it out in pencil as fast as I could. I would usually write 1 to 3 pages just about that one scene, and to keep me in that one scene and to really explore all the different emotions that could be happening for that person. And maybe I'd get 1 or 2 sentences, but that was I think the act that would bring out what I really needed to say.
And why did you set so much of this book in Sweden? What is your connection?
Well, the book is a very personal story for me. I too lost my parents young and traveled to Sweden at a time when I deeply needed to heal from grief. So Sweden was a place that I went during that time, and it really was an opening up for me. You know, it was, I was there during midsummer when the light was out almost all night, and it just felt like another world.
There were a lot of hard parts to write in The All-Night Sun. What was the hardest?
I think for me, it was the very end, and I mean the last couple of pages. I remember when we were trying to sell the book, I was talking to one editorial team that I ultimately didn't go with, and they asked me to explain the end. And I knew that I always wanted it to be the story of someone who was coming up right to the edge of grief. They'd been going through something, they were almost drowning. And I wanted the end to feel like someone's first deep breath after a long period of being underwater.
You were formerly the co-director of AWP at working on the biggest literary conference in North America. So you've been in the business for a long time. What have you learned about the industry?
That there are a lot of people who want to help the next generation of writers. The very best thing I did while I was there was create a mentorship program. It was called Writer to Writer, and I was able to help match more than 600 writers during that time, and people were giving of their time and their talents for free.
Now that your first novel is coming out, do you have any advice for first-time writers, for debut authors?
I think you want to recognize if you've got that something inside of yourself, to not give up on it. Because not everyone has that glimmer inside of themselves that says to keep going. And when you've got it, it's a gift and you should use it.
You had a horrific experience where this book sold and was canceled, and then you had to go out and sell it again. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I really think it's important to tell this story because a lot of writers don't realize how common this really is. I had an editor who acquired the book, loved the book, and then moved on to another publishing house. And so I was reassigned. You know, for a little while I was called orphaned. I was an orphaned writer. And so I was reassigned to someone else who hadn't had that initial spark with my book. And it wasn't the right fit, but it got dropped. And it took me about 14 months before I was over that to the point where I was able to make that story mine again, put it back together in the way that I believed, and ask my agent to try to sell it again. And once we did, I think it sold in just about a month.
Oh my God. Wow. That's heartbreaking and also uplifting at the same time.
Okay.
Diane, thank you so, so much. The All Night Sun is gorgeous, and I hope you sell many, many copies.
Thank you so much, Rachel.